Of course we believe that there's a hellfire and you will burn in the
That's
hellfire.
why one really strong reason not to have a kid is because your kid might be the one going to hellfire.
So we're back here again at Speaker's Corner in London. We are talking to members of the public about antinatalism. We've got a range of signs, same signs as in the last video. So we're going to see what people say and let's get into it.
There's more utility in coming out and focusing on, like I say, the suffering that is going on right now, specific suffering, for example, like the killing of animals or whatever things that you care about personally, I'm not sure. The brutality of humanity, the darknesses that we go through. Do you not think it's worth coming out and speaking that message rather than one of, let's say, zero reproduction?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a value in balance, which, you know, I mean, many of us in this group here today are vegan, you know, so we all care about animal suffering as well.
You don't have a sign with vegan on it?
No, I mean, like, you know, separate events, separate messages, like, but many of us go to vegan events as well. I think it is important to balance those two things, right? Not bringing new individuals into the world and helping those who are already in it. And I think those two things can actually intertwine, right? So if you are to advocate for access to contraception in places where they don't currently have an amazing access to it, that's two birds with one stone, you know? It's reducing birth rates there, but it's also improving the quality of their lives because they're not going to have kids that, you know, they didn't want, and etc. etc.
I don't see out here with signs talking about like Niger, Central Africa, you know, IDing people so we know that they're on the planet to begin with, and then finding out ways of distributing contraception, for example, safe sex education, stuff like that, which really helps people on the ground.
Yeah.
So you guys are here talking about like you said, sort of an extreme stance. And my question to you is why so extreme and so unrealistic, perhaps?
And that's an interesting thing as well, because as I said, we're here for antinatalist activism. So antinatalism is the belief that we shouldn't be bringing new beings into existence, new sentient beings. And I think especially under Islam, you have a really compelling reason not to create new beings, not to have children in particular. It's because if you bring a child into existence, you risk that child burning in a lake of fire forever if they choose not to be a Muslim, or I guess they choose, if they're not a Muslim at the point that they die, as an adult, of course. And I think that is a very good reason not to have children. Because if I have a kid, as I said, there's a chance they would burn in hell.
Nice plug, by the way.
no, thank you. No, thank you. Obviously, you know.
Yeah, I know.
We are recording for the channel too.
And that's fine. And we can possibly speak
Sure.
on that if we get a chance as well. So, but the whole, obviously, argument is predicated on the beginning. And I
don't think so, because with the antinatalist argument in particular, again, I would say the arguments for not having children as a theist, or at least as a Muslim or a Christian that believes in hell, they are stronger than any argument that I can say as an atheist.
When you're talking about children, that presupposes a conceiving being, a person, an existence. So when you're talking about a being in an existence, the primary question to that being in existence is, how did I get here? Who am I? What am I doing here? So
I'm so sorry. I think they're all very different questions. So how did I get here would be like a material one. Like what? So why? What am I doing here? Do you mean like in terms of purpose, or?
Yeah. So you've got purpose. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
How did I get here? How did everything else get here?
Yes.
These sorts of questions, I would say, are more fundamental than, say, questioning or discussing about, okay, should we bring a child in or not? Because a child is, like I said, it presupposes a person that's obviously going to conceive that child in the first place.
I would personally disagree, because I think for the purpose of this conversation, it's better to say that from your worldview, should you have children? From my worldview, should I have children? Because I think in both, as I said, if anything, as a Muslim, you have more strong reasons not to have children, so your kid doesn't burn forever in hell.
The reason we're not here with those signs is because, one, we're not in Niger, so there would be not much point us, well, unless we were directly linking to like a charity donation link. In the future, we could have charity donation links. Personally, I do donate to charities like that. They're not, I don't know if they're in Niger specifically. They base themselves in Nigeria. But yeah, I agree with you. I think if there's anywhere in the world that giving access to contraception is going to be most effective, it's going to be in those countries that have the highest birth rates at the moment, which is generally sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah. Okay,
I think.
Here's another question. Do you think it should be part of the education system? This conflict should be part of the education.
Yes, I think ethics generally should be part of the education system. I think it should be mandatory for everyone to learn, because I think as soon as you start interacting with other people, ethics becomes relevant. And I think one of the biggest ethically relevant decisions anyone's going to ever make is whether they create someone else. And so I think 100% that should be in the curriculum. Not that it should be some form of indoctrination, but yeah, the subject should be raised and the question should be asked, I think. Definitely, yeah.
From my perspective, obviously you're bringing these children into the world, and according to Islam, this child, if they leave, because would you agree that there are good people, there are well-intentioned people who are not Muslims, like 3/4 of the world, there are still nice people out there?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So one of these people could be someone who's born in an Islamic family. They choose to leave Islam, and according to Islam, because they've left, they're going to be killed in this life under the caliphate, not like as a vigilante, but under the caliphate, and then burn in hellfire forever. I think that is an extremely wrong thing to do. And if I'm a parent, if I'm a Muslim parent, and I'm thinking about whether or not to have children, and I think, well, if my child leaves Islam, they're going to be persecuted in this life and burn in hellfire in the next. That's a very strong incentive for me not to have children.
You've said that a couple of times and categorically as well. So I'm forced to ask, like, where have you got this position from?
Sure.
That if you because this is the one criteria that you've given. If you leave Islam under a caliphate, you're going to be put to death. Like,
and burning in hellfire is pretty.
Yeah. So where have you got that from?
From Islamic teachings.
Yeah, where? Because I haven't come across it.
You don't believe in hell?
No, I don't believe that of what you're saying, that there's a blanket rule that if you're under a caliphate and you leave Islam, you can be put to death. I'll give you the position. I'll give you an example or a case study of a caliphate, the Ottoman Empire.
Well, yes, where they were deported, but in the same way that I would like to live.
You're aware of that, isn't
it? Yes, because Ahmed just brought it up.
Yeah.
But you want the whole world to be Muslim, right?
So what do you think about that? That in the Ottoman Empire, somebody that left the faith was not put to death.
Well, I'm glad they weren't killed, but they were deported. But the thing is...
No, but you brought it up a couple of times. You said that leaving the faith under a caliphate would mean you're put to death. Well, but this is a case of somebody not being put to death.
There won't be that option in an Islamic world, unless people were like deported to Mars.
That was an Islamic empire, the Ottoman Empire.
Yes.
And Vavanam was deported.
Well, I'm really, really glad that they weren't killed.
My
point is going to say that.
No, but your premise was that if you're in a caliphate and you leave the religion, you will be put to death.
Yes.
I've given you an example, and you're aware of this example where a person was not put to death.
Yes.
So I'm trying to understand how do you reconcile this with your statement that you're going to be put to death?
From speaking with Muslims, they tell me that if the whole world was under a caliphate, which is what they want the whole world to be governed by Islamic law, there won't be anywhere for ex-Muslims to be deported to, and in which case they would be put to death if the caliph determined it to be the case. Again, not vigilante justice, but if the caliph determined that this was to be the case, they would be put to death. And again, this goes to the antinatalist point. If you're a Muslim, your parent, your child could leave Islam one day, and then to be persecuted in this life and burn in hellfire in the next.
What was your initial reaction to this topic when you first heard about it, and how's your understanding of it and feeling towards it changed over time?
Strangely, I was never emotionally adverse to it. I do see a lot of suffering. I would suggest brave enough to admit the darknesses, not only externally but also within myself. I see a lot of the evils in the world are evils that maybe if I was put in other situations I'd be capable of committing. I think people should be honest about that. And so I was able to see, a massive upside in not having people suffer, and obviously with no life there's no suffering. So I was able to see that initially. I think that what held me back and what's changed over the time has been the way in which I would be able to sort of convince people. I found that it's become kind of futile, because firstly, it's extreme. It goes against biology. It goes back against people's innate, you've got to forget education, but their innate instincts, which is even deeper. And that's a challenge. And I just think anything that's so utopian and unrealistic is not worth the time, quite frankly. And I think that there are more pragmatic, rational ways to go about change and reducing suffering than maybe a utopian vision.
And what about, because I agree with you in terms of being able to get people en masse to be convinced by this, I agree with you, it probably is futile. But in terms of once someone has heard this message, they can mull it over in their head like someone like you. So how has it made you think differently about your own decisions about whether you'll reproduce?
Like I suggested, I think it should be a core part of education. The choice and the decision to bring a child in and what the benefits are, which are obvious, but what the downsides are for that kid. And the unfortunate point is that most people that do have kids, they do it not from necessarily a choice. People who are autopilot, but beyond that, poorer people are more likely to have kids at a younger age. If you're less educated, if a girl's less educated, she's more likely to have a kid younger and more kids. And I think that it's a tricky one. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I would make a change to humanity alone. I know that every movement has to start somewhere, but it would also end somewhere, and it would end with me.
When it comes to antinatalism, my starting point isn't to go up to them and say you need to be an atheist like me and go from there. No, but you say whatever their worldview is and go from there.
But your point was that look, they as a Muslim, you believe they'll go to the hellfire and this will happen.
Well, many Muslims do believe this. Would you agree?
But believe what?
That if they, the Muslims I've talked to today, I mean, you might be different, sorry. Then again, I'm just going by what people are telling me, is that if their child leaves Islam, then they will go to hell.
If the look, if a person,
in the hell, burn in the lake of fire.
Yeah, of course we believe that there's a hellfire and you will burn in the hellfire.
That's why one really strong reason not to have a kid is because your kid might be the one going to hellfire. Now my kid is not going to be any chance of going to hellfire because I'm not going to create them. Whether that's the Islamic hellfire, the Christian hellfire, some other hellfire if there is one.
But you know what?
I'm not risking my kid going.
John, as a human being, that's a very sad way of living one's life.
How so?
I'll tell you. Because if you believe that, you know what, let's just say you have a friend, and you're like, I want to protect that friend from this problem and that strife and this harm, you're going to keep them in a cotton wool, you're gonna smother them, frankly. You're not going to allow them from going out, from experiencing life and existence. That's exactly what you're doing. You're taking control of life, which is actually not in your control. You actually can't, even if you use contraception, John, even if you use contraception, you can't control life. If life is going to happen, it's going to happen. Do you agree?
No. I think that
how are you going to stop it?
If I choose not to have sex again, then I'm not going to have any kids.
No,
if I choose not to donate, there's not going to be any.
Not necessarily. So there's possibilities. There's kids here. So whose kids are these? Huh? Little brothers. Because the conversation's a bit.
No, sorry, yes. We can steer away from it. I didn't mean to take it that.
Nice to see you guys.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take it in that direction. But you know what I mean? Like,
No, I get you. I know it wasn't deliberate. I can tell from, but they've gone now.
Sorry, yes.
So there's ways of having kids without having sex.
Yes, but I mean, I would have to, unless someone, stole my sperm from me in my sleep.
No. There's ways that, even if you're doing foreplay, which, of course, you believe that there's
If I never did any of that, I never touched a woman again. And I never went to a sperm bank. I never did IVF. None of that.
Is that what you're committed to?
I'm not saying that I am. It would be a lonely life.
John,
it would be a lonely life. You are correct.
Practice what you preach, mate. Come on.
No, I am practicing what I preach and not having children.
Do you think we're too quick to condemn suffering instead of realizing that there's beauty in darkness as well as in light?
No, I don't think we're too quick to condemn suffering. It does depend sometimes on the situation, but by and large, I think a lot of the suffering that happens in the world is pretty senseless and horrific, and I think it should be condemned. And I think once we condemn something, we're more likely then to take action against it, and I think it's good that we take action against a lot of the suffering in the world. So I don't think we're too quick, no.
When it comes to suffering in the moment, surely if it leads to good things, everyone suffers slightly you know, on a long walk to get to a destination.
Yeah.
But if that destination is somewhere better, what's to stop that? And actually, isn't your message actually dissuading people from taking that journey at all to a better sort of future?
I don't think so, because I think if someone is willing to go on a journey that's going to take them to somewhere they expect to make their lives a better place, but the journey contains some level of hardship, suffering. I think, you know, like, good on that person. I think if you want to make a decision for your own life.
If I had said no suffering, right, suffering is bad, and now you're advocating suffering, there's a slight contradiction, isn't there?
So when we say no suffering, we mean not bringing any more in, right? So there's a difference between taking on suffering yourself and imposing it on someone else. So if I, you know, let's say, well, when you create someone, if we just boil it down to one aspect, cancer, when you create someone, you're creating them with the knowledge that there is some level of probability, some likelihood that they'll get cancer at some point in their life, which is, you know, horrible. No one thinks cancer is a good thing, right? There's a difference between making that decision and making a decision for yourself, like, no smoking, that you also know there's some level, you know, there's some likelihood this is going to bring cancer on me. And that's the core of what we're talking about here, is there's a difference between making decisions that are going to go right back on you and where the victim of your decision is going to be someone else.